We interrupt your programming right now to bring you breaking news. A judge has just ruled in the first-degree murder trial of a former St. Louis police officer. Jason Stockley has been found not guilty on all charges.
Let's bring you up to speed on this case now. Stockley was accused of fatally shooting Anthony Lamar Smith in December of 2011 following a suspected drug deal involving Smith and a high-speed chase through parts of North City. Stockley said Anthony Lamar Smith was armed and dangerous when he shot and killed him in 2011. He denied the claim from prosecutors that he planted a gun in Smith's car. Prosecutors say Stockley was heard on the dash cam video saying he was going to kill Smith. He then shot him 5 times. Stockley waived his right to have the case heard before a jury of his peers and instead opted for a bench trial that lasted 5 days.
You're listening to The Devil's Advocate, where we talk about news and current events. I'm your host, Brandon Condict.
And I'm also your host, Mitchell Hernandez. Our goal at The Devil's Advocate is to provoke thought by introducing viewpoints and information that isn't readily available in the mainstream media.
It's in truth a conversation where an independent liberal, like myself,
and an independent conservative, like myself, can share different viewpoints without the typical disdain for one another we see all too often in politics. So with that, let's get started.
What's up, everybody? I just wanted to jump in real quick to give a little bit of an explanation for the title of the episode and whatnot. So obviously the big story for us being in St. Louis is the Jason Stockley verdict and the protests and the unrest in St. Louis as a result thereof. So when we shot this this next segment that you're about to hear, it was a couple days after the verdict was out and protests had started. We hadn't actually gone down to view one of the protests in person. If you've been following us on Facebook and Twitter, you know that since we recorded the episode, we have gone down and we got some decent content and whatnot, and interview and not only did we go down there, but there are things in the segment that that you're about to hear that we didn't go into. So this is going to be part 1 of the Jason Stockley verdict and the St. Louis protests, and you can expect next week to get our conclusion. After having been at one of the protests and talking to a few people and you know, there are other aspects of this story that we don't really go deep into, and we would like to do that next week. So with all that being said, here is part 1 of the Jason Stockley verdict. Thanks.
Stand up like that! What do we do? 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 Stand up like that! No peace! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! I said no justice! No peace! I said no justice! No peace! No justice! No peace!
All right, and we are back for episode 28. Obviously, we got some big stories this week. First off, we'll mention that Frank is back with us this week.
Yeah.
And
the charm.
Let's see, we've got a few things on the docket for today. The big story, obviously, being the Jason Stockley verdict out of our hometown, St. Louis.
Right.
So we'll go into a timeline on that. We've got a couple other stories that we wanted to touch on earlier in the week before this verdict came out, and then we'll at the end, I think we'll kind of go into an awesome little personal story, and I can explain to you all how Brandon's too much of a heathen to participate in community activities. So, but we'll get into that later. So right now we'll start off with the Jason Stockley verdict. Obviously,
Not guilty.
If you have been watching the news, if you're in St. Louis, it's all over the local news. If you're not, it's been quite a bit on the national. It's been on the national news quite a bit, because there are more protests in St. Louis this weekend, and that comes off of this court case where I guess the story is that Jason Stockley was a police officer in 2011, was chasing Anthony Lamar Smith, who they suspected of being involved in a drug deal, and that this resulted in a high-speed chase. And at the end of it, Jason Stockley killed Anthony Lamar Smith. Where the controversy comes into this story is that on the dash cam video, Jason Stockley, the officer, was heard saying, "I'm going to kill this motherfucker." And then he did. So there's that.
You probably shouldn't say.
There is also accusations that he planted a gun in Anthony Lamar Smith's vehicle. And that seems to be backed up by some video evidence, or at least that's where the claim comes from.
Yeah, he pretty much has his back to camera for the. You don't see anything conclusive, but it's heavily implied.
Well, the big thing with that is that the gun didn't have
any of the victim's
DNA on it. It only had his DNA on it, and also because he had personal weapons in his vehicle. He had an AK-47.
And then another handgun, right?
I believe so.
I thought someone had once said that it was a handheld automatic. I don't know. Maybe that's not right.
Well,
I don't know if I'd read that or maybe heard.
The AK-47.
Yeah, the AK-47 being it.
So, real quick, I'll go into the timeline just to kind of give everybody all the details as we have them. And then we can kind of debate each little piece. So, so here's pretty much the story. St. Louis judge ruled Friday that former St. Louis police officer Jason Stockley is not guilty in the 2011 death of Anthony Lamar Smith. A timeline of events leading up to the ruling. December 20th, 2011, Stockley and his partner see what appears to be a drug transaction on the parking lot of a fast food restaurant. As they seek to corner Smith, he drives away and Stockley fires several shots at his car. Defense attorney Neil Bruntrager said the officers were nearly run over. I actually didn't know that detail.
No, I didn't either.
A 2-minute chase begins. Police dash cam video captures Stockley saying, "I'm going to kill this motherfucker. Don't you know it?" in the midst of the chase. As Smith's car slows, Stockley tells Officer Brian, Bianchi, "Hit him right now," and Bianchi slams the police SUV into Smith's car. Stockley emerges from the SUV and fires 5 shots into Smith's car, killing him. Bruntrager said that Stockley fired only when Smith refused commands to put his hands up and reached along the seat toward an area where a gun was found. But prosecutors said Stockley planted a gun, and as Mitch had said, testing found Stockley's DNA on the gun, but not Smith's. In December 2011, the then police chief Dan Isom requested an FBI investigation. Stockley is placed on desk duty. In February of 2012, a wrongful death suit is filed on behalf of Smith's younger daughter, Autumn Smith. In June of 2012, St. Louis Circuit Attorney Jennifer Joyce offers to meet with U.S. Attorney Richard Callahan, and both agree there isn't sufficient evidence to prosecute Stockley. In August 2013, a year later, Stockley resigns from the police department 1 month after then police chief Sam Dotson, who took over in January 13 after Isom's retirement, suspended Stockley without pay for 30 days for violating pursuit and use of force policies in the Smith case. 1 month later, in September of 2013, Stockley, now living in Houston, takes a job as a project manager for T.H. Hill Associates. According to his online resume, he leaves the company in January of 2016. In December, the timeline kind of jumps a little bit, obviously. So a couple of months after that, after moving to Houston, in December of 2013, the St. Louis Board of Police Commissioners reaches a $900,000 settlement ending the lawsuit filed on behalf of Smith's daughter, which to me, if you just look at that point, is almost an admittance of something happening that's not like the.
It's kind of standard procedure in order to prevent further litigation,
right?
And to me, I don't go down that road just because we see that happen
with politicians all the time. If they're being investigated, they must have done something wrong.
And they say like, listen, this just pay it off. It does more.
You
damage.
do have to keep in mind, like sometimes,
I guess that's
sometimes
fair.
it's not the case.
So now we're gonna insert, I guess, ABC is going to insert the Ferguson thing, and I think it's good to know that right after a few months after this happens is when Ferguson happens.
Yeah, because I mean, these protests now aren't just about Smith; they're about every other
everything
shooting.
Yeah. So on August 9th, 2014, Michael Brown is fatally shot by police officer Darren Wilson in the St. Louis suburb of Ferguson. The killing of the black unarmed 18-year-old by a white officer and the November 2014 grand jury decision not to indict Wilson sets off sometimes violent unrest and leads to scrutiny of the police department. That seems like a pretty nice way of dusting that one.
A little understatement, I think.
Every now and again, someone got, attacked.
Every now and again, stores and gas stations
get burned down.
Right. Yeah, right. So on May 16th, 2016, Joyce announced first-degree murder charges against Stockley. She cites new evidence but doesn't disclose what it is. Stockley is arrested at his home in Houston. He is freed from jail after the St. Louis Police Officers Association, the union representing most St. Louis police officers, posted a $1 million or $100,000 of his $1 million bail. So the St. Louis Police Department bailed him out after he got, or not the police department,
police union
association, right? And here's where Stockley gets clever. In July of 2017, Stockley waives his right to a jury trial in favor of a bench trial. Veteran St. Louis Circuit Judge Timothy Wilson is appointed to hear the case. On August 1st, 2017, Stockley's trial begins with a crowd of spectators so large, several people have to be turned away. That's a nice tidbit of information. August 9th, the trial ends, but Judge Wilson gives attorneys from both sides until August 18th to file post-trial briefs. On August 28th, a group of about 50 activists who support Smith's family gathered on the steps of the courthouse where the trial was heard and threatened significant civil disobedience if Stockley is acquitted. Organized say that they'll shut down highways, Lambert Airport, or downtown businesses. On September 15th, a few days ago, Wilson announces a not guilty verdict. Protests break out.
Right.
And
we saw that.
That's where we are right now.
We saw that coming because I follow Greitens on, obviously our governor on social media, and he was like getting the National Guard ready. They came out. They
put
did
up barricades. They
they did a whole thing.
They told several, U2 and a bunch of concerts were canceled. They said the reason was they were told they wouldn't have the adequate police force to ensure their safety, a crowd that size.
Right. And they were saying like, hey, we don't know how it's gonna go, but just remember, no violence.
Yeah, we all knew how it was gonna go.
Yeah.
Right. Although, to be fair, too, with the exception now, the night, so the verdict came out on Friday, and the initial protest, there was a little bit of vandalism done, but overall, nothing comparative to the Ferguson type.
Yeah.
Right.
Of those were riots. These were protests, and then there was a couple of bad apples.
And before the protests
is.
even started, I know his mother and I think a couple clergymen were urging peace. They were urging people. So that was something they've been trying to push.
It never works. I mean, they do that every time. Whoever.
There's always going to be
family.
The family was urging peace, but
right.
There was
there
was a lot of controversy in St. Louis over the last couple of weeks because the clergy was out. The St. Louis clergy members were out saying, "If you acquit this guy, there will be blood on your hands."
Yeah.
That's not them calling for peace. That's inciting, and I do think that there's a problem with that. I don't care what your organization is. No organization should go out and be like, "Hey, are you pissed off? You should break shit. Like that's irresponsible from any
or trying to
organization.
strong arm any type of judicial committee that's coming up with that. With you can't say like, well, you need to go in our way.
Now, are they really saying that though? They're not calling for violence. They're just saying there's going to be
probably
violence.
Gonna be violence.
Right. You know it because of what you're about to do.
Yeah, that's fair.
Again, to me, it's like you can't.
It's that the conversation we had.
Like, well, what are you trying to accomplish?
I hope someone kills the president. You know, that's you're allowed to say that. It's not calling for violence, but it's questionable. Straddling a line.
Now, and this is one case where I think that the evidence was more overwhelming than usual.
Yeah, I mean,
that like this dude was in the wrong. That's my personal belief.
When you look at the video, come the fuck on, right? Like, dude, the fact that he had multiple personal guns in his car, which was against department policy, to me, like, it may not be against the law because you hear gun people making that point. Well, it's not against the law. Like, yeah, okay, it's not
against the law to own the gun. I think it is against it.
Well, you have an open carry.
No, it wasn't against the law for him to have it, according to police officers who have been interviewed. Which, okay, duh. Yeah. But it's not against the law to have it. It is against department policy to have it.
Well, yeah, because they gave you the gun.
He was breaking. Yeah, and that was your point that you had said a couple of days ago. It was like, if you need an AK-47, I'm pretty sure they'll hand it to you.
Yeah,
like,
we saw yesterday a guy with a sniper rifle.
Right.
They have the equipment.
Yeah. So,
which was crazy.
But the idea that like there's several things in this that to me the odds just stack up against Stockley so much.
Oh yeah. Now there's a chance. There's a chance that he could be innocent, but the odds of it are just so astronomical.
Well, there's too many holes in the story, right? So like he gets out of the car and he starts shooting. If you watch the video, I'll link to the video in the comment section on iTunes and Google Play.
Not safe for work.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. It's definitely not. But if you watch the video, you see that when he gets out of the car and starts shooting into Smith's car, his partner, who should also be on edge because of the same threat that's being exerted upon both of them, it doesn't even reach for his gun. Like, he never reaches for his gun, which to me, like, draws into question, was there actually a threat? Because only one of you seemed to be threatened by what was happening.
Well, they said that
and the one that was threatened was the one who said, I'm going to fucking kill this guy.
Right.
Did he say guy? Did he use the N-word?
He didn't use the
I
N-word.
did not.
That was okay. That must have been like I saw it early on, but I think it was from a disreputable source.
I think that it was because I had seen that too floating around like Twitter or Facebook or something, and I just think that was one of those rumors that just kind of
or a game of telephone where
it kind of took on its own thing. But
I know
everything
they said,
I've seen was
because I know especially when certain white people like to report on it, we won't use the words. Sometimes people will just interject and what they think is an awful the next level,
and then they think, well, then that must be it.
Well, and that's where I was because I had heard both accounts, and I was telling you during the week that like. I need to see what's behind that expletive because the way the media keeps putting it up, it's I'm going to kill this expletive, and I've heard one person say it was this word, and I've heard another person say it was this term, and I need to know.
And if you say mother expletive, then you can kind of fill in that.
Or expletive hyphen expletive. We can fill in the gap there.
Right.
Yeah. But so apparently,
give me one letter and a bunch of stars. That's all I need.
Right.
Do it like my phone's auto talk feature when I text.
Right. God, it's annoying. But so apparently he came up and shot him very close range. They said it was like 6 inches.
Yeah, which is unheard of. Most gunfights take place, I think, 7 to 10 feet at least.
And again, even still, there is a chance you get up there and all of a sudden he's reached for the gun. He claims that he, the reason why his DNA was on it and not the other guy was because he in the heat of the moment, he just grabbed it and tossed it away so that he couldn't get to it.
See, what I had heard was at least in 2013 or whenever he was questioned the first time, and this may be wrong. This could like whoever reported it
Brandon
could have had
rumors.
but
fake news.
What I had heard was the reason that he claimed his fingerprints were on it was because he unloaded it. And so whether or not it was in the heat of the moment that he picked it up, or no matter what, then you have been trained shittily. Because
well, I mean, is it department policy like you see in the movies when they shoot someone, they'll kick the weapon away? Like it does seem like
touch it.
If you're in a
but
car,
again,
you can't really kick it.
You shot him 6 times. I don't know that he's going to be able to grab for the gun. I think he was pretty much dead on right away, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was dead before they opened up the car door and found the gun. So
again, to me, like that. I don't believe that that's what happened. But I'm not going to say that couldn't have
No,
happened.
because
in the heat of,
like, in
in
my
the heat of the
gut,
moment, I would do that. I would probably grab the gun and be like, no, screw this, get out of here.
Right.
But I don't believe that this guy did that. I think that he went the other route.
Right.
So, but I have seen some reports where they're like, no, that couldn't have happened. And, it could.
The other problem, too, that I have with it is immediately after Smith is shot dead, Stockley walks back to his patrol car and starts rummaging through a duffel bag.
Yeah.
Then he goes back to the car. Then he pulls out a gun.
Whoa.
With only his handprints on it.
And he claimed he
not
was getting a medical, like the emergency kit they get, but I don't think there was any, like, evidence of him doing anything to Stockley.
Yeah.
Or to Smith, rather.
No,
Yeah.
no, not
Well, you're
at all.
supposed to handcuff them. That's the standard procedure. Even if as soon as you've shot them, they still are supposed to be handcuffed. That's why you always see them handcuffing the dead people after they're done. That's just what they're supposed to do, or what the first thing they do. So I don't know if he did that, or if he went right back to the duffel bag.
I mean, I don't know, from a gut feeling, it looked an awful lot like someone rummaging in their mind for a way out of this and planting a gun.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I have to bring it up, even though like it is nothing more than a conspiracy theory, but it just because of the way that I see this playing out, or that I feel like the way everything looks. So you've got a guy now. Obviously, so I know we can't do this, but let's take the hypothetical. Yeah, let's do the hypothetical game that we like to play, and let's say that he did plant the gun, right? So that means that a gun in his duffel bag is an unmarked gun.
Unregistered.
Right, unregistered. So now you've got two other registered guns that are his and don't belong to the department. I would be interested in knowing the date that those were registered. Was Smith still alive when they were registered? We'll never know, because the paperwork would always say it. And this is, again, conspiracy theory. Like this isn't shit. But this is where my mind goes as somebody who goes, well, if you can take it as fact that this gun was planted, which you can't.
If we're running that idea, if we're running that idea,
then you would also wonder about those other two guns, because is this a pattern?
Yeah.
Does this guy just plant guns on people that he kills?
Yeah,
Is
I find it
that
suspicious
a
that he
problem?
had 3 guns on him. Like, I'm assuming the coincidence of him only bringing those guns on the day he shot someone, like he carried those guns all the time.
Right.
Now,
So-
again, they're claiming there's only 2 of guns that were his. The third we're lumping in as being his, but there is a chance that it is the other guy's.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
So
we're running that play in that hypothetical, and there's nothing to back it up. So obviously, we're not making any claims.
Which
here.
is so frustrating when you have video evidence that neither confirms nor denies conclusively
Well, that
one
seems
way or
to
the
be
other.
the pattern here when it comes to the cops thing. And the same we saw that with Philando Castile, where it was so, in my opinion, so obvious that the cop was in the wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But it says, well, from the footage, you can see Philando Castile, but you can't see what his hands are doing. So we're just going to side with the officer.
Yeah.
That seems to be the thing, is since you don't have 100% definitive proof, and even when you do half the time, they just go, well, there's still shadow of a doubt, so boom.
Yeah, which doesn't work nearly that well for
anyone
any
else.
drug conviction in the world.
No.
We'll never get that relief.
No, and I think a big part of, I think where I really feel for the sentiment of the community, is that I think when you see this over and over again, like we had talked privately the other day, and you had said to me that what is the point of doing an investigation if we already know what the outcome is going to be?
And I
always do.
And I do think
the
that's
statistic I read was 99% of police in 2015 got off. I don't know if that's accurate, but
I think
it's
it's 90.
easy to
I don't think
believe.
it's
It's got to be very high,
And I
which
just
automatically
can't-
speaks
I
to
just
it can't be
believe
true justice.
If you look at 100% of these types of cases, that in every single instance, nobody that has a badge did anything wrong or anything far enough past the line. Like, you can't. Mistakes are made, and it can be as simple as a mistake. Darren Wilson may not have been a racist looking for a black guy walking down the street.
Right.
And that is very possibly and probably true of Jason Stockley too.
Yeah.
To me, the racism thing doesn't come into this as much. To me, it's just this epidemic, it feels like, of police killing young black guys, and
Yeah.
then the
And
judicial
people-
system.
Yeah, and people in general.
And,
'cause
yeah,
like you
and
said,
St.
they
Louis
kill-
is particularly bad because we have one of the
Oh, yeah.
highest
And
murder
you
rates,
cannot tell
if
me-
not the highest.
You cannot tell me.
There's a lot of crime in St. Louis. You know,
Yeah.
so, like that just breeds the bad
But you
situation.
can't
But I
tell
think
me
we're one of the
in the
worst
same way-
cities for murder.
in the same way that
particular.
you look at the Michael Brown thing, and you saw that like, oh, it didn't, like, there was the grand jury, and like there was never even a case, and Darren Wilson was just acquitted and whatever. And then you flash forward to this, and you see what appears to be a city cop waiving his right to a trial to have a city judge decide his fate, knowing
And
that
isn't
he
he
would
retiring?
knowing that he would never send him to a city jail with the people that he arrested.
No.
And yeah, this was his last
No, I can't
case.
imagine
Yeah.
cops
That's-
get an easy treatment in jail
That
anyway.
looks pretty fucked up to me.
Yeah, it just does.
So, you know, I now on the same respect, like, you understand the frustration, you understand the anger, and from my perspective, it's hard for me to go, stop breaking windows. That's what I believe, but I understand why you're pissed. Like,
Yeah.
how many times, how many people don't get held accountable, and you just sit back and go,
Yeah.
well, the
Especially when you hold that very same community accountable for minor drug
And,
infractions
right.
or jaywalking.
Well, that's what you
know?
hear all the time. It's like, oh, don't break the law. It's like, fuck you. You speed.
Yeah,
Everyone does it.
who
Like,
hasn't seen a cop not using a turn signal
well, and
or
here's
speeding?
an idea that
Oh, it's fine though.
Here's an idea that popped into my head
Who is police
last night. So you hear from the people from avid police supporters, and when I say that, I mean the police
will just
can,
support them.
Yeah, the police can do no wrong. Police supporters,
Right.
those guys.
They put
They
their
have a
life
tough
on the
job.
line. Yeah.
Those guys will tell you, well, the community just doesn't respect the police. And what I would say to that is that is probably true. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, there
but
is.
I would go
Because
a step
they don't
further.
respect the community.
I would.
Right.
That's the step I would go. Is that it's a mutual thing.
And it's a chicken and the egg. We don't know who
Right.
did what first, but I know there's always been police brutality.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of police officers don't like the community that they're serving, and I think that's. I think an
I think
evidence
it jades
of
them.
that.
I don't know that if they 100% don't like the community. I think that they do. The problem is that when you have power, if you have a bad day and you want to take it out, or you've seen things and you actually have dealt with really vicious scumbags for the past week, and then now you just snap.
Right.
You still got to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Like I said, when we make mistakes at our jobs, we get held accountable. If you kill someone and oops, they had a banana, not a gun. That's a literal case,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
and you go, oh, well, I feared for my life. No, that you shouldn't be able to do that. If you
Right.
mess up and someone dies, you should be held accountable
And I think-
regardless.
But I think the thing we need to demand here is a change to protocol on how they're trained to deal with
they
people.
only get like 6 months of training anyway.
Yeah, they're not trained on de-escalation. They're
Right, you
trained
gotta-
as if they're soldiers, and then you have a soldier's mentality. And
Yeah.
you know, it's, if I give you a hammer, every problem is a
You need more training to be a hairdresser than a
Nail.
police officer. It doesn't make any damn sense.
yeah.
Right.
But it's the way it is.
Yeah.
And
I-
it seems to attract a certain type of person, someone who like craves power. You don't get into it if you're really big into
Well, now when you
Well, I think
know,
that-
problems.
now when you
Well,
know
my-
that on the other side of the application is a license to kill anybody you don't fucking like,
Yeah.
because
Well, I think
you
that
were
you're-
scared.
I think that you're projecting a very nefarious type of personality onto every cop that I don't want to do. I think that
but I think it's
I
the
will.
training. It's the way they're taught
Yeah.
to see the world, and it should be different. They should be taught de-escalation of situations. You know.
Well, and again, they are taught that. It just depends on do they do it every time, and
Yeah.
they don't. And whenever they don't do it every
And then
time,
I think it becomes a very much an us versus them mentality.
yeah.
I think too that there's I think that you're right. I think all of that plays into it, and the way that their job is gone and the people that they've interacted with. But I also think too that if you pull somebody over for not signaling, I feel like a lot of police officers have this. You've done something wrong. I have to figure out what it is.
Right.
So you didn't signal. Where's the heroin? What? That's an overreach, and there was no reason
Right.
to take it to there. And I've actually had that happen to me.
Well, I have
Several
not
years.
heroin, but
I did several years ago. It was Halloween, and I had a great porn stash going on for my Halloween costume, and some baggy ass sweater on, and I looked like I was
Shady.
Yeah, I did look shady, and it was midnight, and I was coming back from the dark night.
Your old car wasn't the,
Right? Yeah, my old car was a hoopty, so but I was profiled based on that. I turned into my dad's neighborhood to drop off my brothers who were young at the time, and this cop had his lights on before he was. And the first thing he said was First of all, he lied. My
My
tags,
crowds are the biggest ever. Let me see your license.
my tags were not expired, which is why I did not get a ticket for that at the end of this scenario. But like he's serious. He pulled me over. He didn't know why he pulled me over, and it was November 2nd. And my plates had to be renewed at the end of the month, and he was like. He was like, your tags are expired. They expire on November 1st. I was like, no, they don't. They expire on the 30th. He was like, where's the heroin? What?
Whoa.
Like,
I think we've all had.
I think
at
he was
least-
just jonesing. He just wanted it fixed. Give it to me.
Yeah.
Come on.
If I make enough outrageous claims, someone will admit to something.
Right.
Right.
And back
two ways
then,
this is gonna go.
I was younger, and I was more of a fucking a self-righteous freedom fighter.
Right.
In my head. I was like, no, I won't tell you anything. You have no reason to be here.
Lawyer.
Yeah,
Lawyer.
like 5 cops later, and
I
like,
have rights.
and I was fine. Like 5 cops later, and an hour and a half, and they were like, "Dude, just go home." So, like I did make this worse, so like I get it, but like,
Right.
there was no reason for that to be the start of our conversation at
Right.
all. And so I think that in a lot of instances that you get those guys that want to find something and are going to find something.
Well-
and those experiences coupled with the more extreme experiences or,
Right.
or instances like the Stockley and Wilson and
Oscar Grant
and all of this stuff.
all these other people.
Well, it's like they said with Philando Castile, he was pulled over 54 times in the past year and a half.
Yeah,
Right.
and I don't know. Speaking as a white
Obviously.
person in a city that's pretty racist, I have been pulled over once in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact I speed all the time.
What was I don't get pulled over now that I drive my Lincoln, but when I drove my truck, and a friend of mine, his dad worked for the police force, and anyone who knows my old truck, this thing was just littered in stickers and bumper stickers, and it just looked like a goofball truck.
Yeah.
But he laughed so hard when I pulled up with that. I was like, "What are you doing driving around with that 20-hour car?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, himself as a cop, that's their term for it. We call those 20-hour cars because we can just pull you over and keep you there for 20 hours because we're gonna find something. So like, I knew that going into it.
Right.
And sure enough, I used to get pulled over constantly. Now that I drive the Lincoln, not so much.
Yeah,
Now when I do,
purposely don't put bumper stickers because I just don't want to cause. You're going to
Yeah.
anger somebody.
But
Not
I
worth
but
it.
again, that goes into profiling the poor. People
Right.
that have poorer cars, they say,
Yeah.
"Oh, let's pull that guy
I
over
think
so we can get them."
So to bring it full circle, I think that when you take those experiences and then you couple them with these big stories where nobody is ever held accountable, it makes sense why the community doesn't have a lot of respect for
Yeah.
the police, because the police don't have a lot of respect for the community.
And most people that I talk to that are not older, like everyone that seems to be like 40 plus, is like, "I love the cops," and they are all white.
Yeah,
and,
right.
and that everyone who's our age, younger, all of them say, "I don't like them."
Well, I
Not
think
that I
it's
don't
also
like
a
'em, I don't feel
generational
safe.
thing. Like we tend to have, our generation tends to have more friends who are minorities. We tend to,
Yeah.
I've been driving around with friends who are black and been pulled over, and then seen the.
Can I see
flop side
his
when-
license? What?
Yeah,
Right.
Like,
but
Yeah.
then I've been pulled over with
Yeah.
my white brother, and they treat us much differently.
yeah.
Right.
So
So yeah, I don't know. I just think to me the whole we'll see what happens. So far as the process have gone, there was a little bit of violence last night, Saturday night.
Yeah, it was more. Well, like the first night, there was the mayor's house.
Mayor's
Got
house
a
was
couple
surrounded.
Of, windows broken.
Yep.
Pepper sprayed came from the police. A couple police officers, I think 10, ended up going to the hospital. Nothing serious though.
I
there
heard one was a
was
jaw.
there was a couple of more serious injuries.
Yeah.
There was nothing was life
No
threatening.
one was shot, I believe.
No.
There was a
think they were throwing
possible
stuff.
possible broken jaw, and then I think a dislocated shoulder too. So obviously, that's not
That
good.
sucks if that's you.
Yeah, and nobody's condoning that.
No,
Nobody's
no.
condoning violence
Yeah.
against the community or against the
So-
police. It just you have to understand from an outsider's perspective. If you're not listening
This
to
is-
this in St. Louis, if you're not listening to this in a community where this has happened, you have to understand
Yeah.
where these people are coming from. This shit happens
Here's-
all the
Well, and
time.
what's
Here's
weird
my
is how
problem with that.
self-contained it is
Yeah.
that we live. I mean, personally, I live in a community that's not far away from this, maybe 20 minutes,
Yeah.
but it's a world different away in the amount people earn.
Yeah.
It's upper, lower class, lower, upper, middle class.
Yeah.
I don't know where exactly, but
Well, especially St. Louis, like I said, there's
There's
literal
pot.
streets where it's like, this is the poor street, this is
yeah,
the rich
yeah.
street.
it's the
And-
wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah, you're always
laid
going to get
out.
that. My problem with that, because I keep hearing that sort of argument where they say you have to understand where the protesters are coming from. Where I disagree with that is that when I look at the protesters, I may understand it. I may know this is the reason behind it. But the fact that they're breaking things and doing stuff is so destructive to their
into
cause.
Yo,
Even though
yeah,
I agree with
absolutely
it.
is.
and people
It
that don't have
absolutely is.
anything to do. We multiple restaurants along Del Mar, windows smashed. None of those people have anything to do with it. They're not police officers. These people don't have the, I guess, bravery to march up to the courthouse or somewhere where they're well defending it with the National Guard because they have huge weapons. Which is why we saw them at the mall yesterday, because they thought, well, if downtown's blockaded, we'll go somewhere where they don't have it.
Yeah, which was an insane showing. I just want to point out and thank Jim for his comment. Jim said that, pointed out that shooting at a fleeing car is very irresponsible. Like, you've got
that's
bystanders, and obviously
Exactly.
I'm jumping back into the Stockley thing because I saw the comment there. But he makes a good point. Life's not a cop show, so don't fucking shoot at a fleeing car. I think that's a very good point.
I do want to, and as much as I hate when people blame media, part of me thinks that because the CSI shows always show the same type of person as the suspect, the cop acting as this Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry, and getting away with it.
Yeah.
I mean, cop shows constantly show the cops breaking protocol.
Right.
And it's become embedded in us.
Yeah.
In the way that every jury wants to know where the microfibers are now, because they don't understand how DNA works.
My problem is that you need to do it in the right way. So I might be sympathetic to the protesters, but I can't say that what they're doing is good.
What's unfortunate too for the people on Del Mar who had their shit broken, their windows broken last night. Which, if you were watching on,
I'm sure people in Del Mar agree with the protesters.
Oh
they're
yeah,
super
it's very
hipstery
liberal.
Yeah, they're super
most
liberal.
hipster.
And
they might be changing their opinions.
And there's
now.
a lot of ethnic places that are like owned. There's a lot of.
if you were and the hookah bar got busted up,
which they did nothing to. That's almost kind of racist.
If you were watching the feed that if you were following us on Facebook last night and Twitter, I kept posting the feed from local news. So, and every time it went off, I would try to find a new feed so that I could keep that going as long as I had access to it last night, so that people could see what was happening on Del Mar. And what was crazy was the amount of time it took to smash up the windows in the loop. Everything, it was almost over. Like, everything was gone. There was like 15 people left, and somebody picked up a trash can and then just like ran down the side of the road, smashing windows.
And part of it, I hate the headlines have been protest turned violent, and which is kind of misleading. 90% of the protesters were peaceful. They came, they protested, they went home, and it was just that the rowdy people at the end who wanted to stay.
There was 1,000 people down there last night, and their organizer at 10 o'clock said, "Okay, go home," and they all did. And 20 people stayed behind. A few of them just to film everything that was going on. And then by the end of the night, by the time that the window smashing started and the violence actually started, there was about, at least from what I could see, it only seemed like 10 people left. There was a big line of cops. There was a bunch of people standing off to the side. Some of them, I think, were from the local businesses, the restaurants and bars, that the police weren't allowing them to get back to their cars because there was a standoff between, 5 to 10 protesters, and then a line of cops, and then a bunch of people that were either standing off filming it on their phone, or they couldn't get back to their car, so they had to stop and stand on the sidewalk. But all of that destruction was created by 1% of the people that showed up last night.
Yeah, but again, the bigger problem also is that there's people who are sympathetic to that and saying, well, that's what we have to do.
Right.
And
you
don't. What are the movements that worked? Gandhi, peaceful protest and all that. You look back to Martin Luther King. The reason that they worked was because they brought sympathy in.
Yeah.
They allowed people they addressed the problem. And that's what I hear a lot is when Black Lives Matter blocks a road and does this, they're creating...
well, think about even a more recent example than that.
It's negative attention, though.
The more recent example of that is the whole gay rights movement. You didn't see a bunch of 10 years ago when things were still progressing.
When Shepard was murdered, and you didn't see a flip of that, of them going out and murdering straight people.
Elton John wasn't out there going break windows and burn buildings.
Until we get it.
You got to bring people and there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. When you block a road, we're bringing attention, negative attention.
What you have
Everyone's
to do
disagreeing with you. You want people to agree with you.
You have to see, with the 60s civil rights movement, you have to see the cops spraying them with water hoses, with them sitting peacefully. You have to see, this is what we're mad about.
Right.
And
now
the cops, especially a lot of white people aren't seeing it because they've never seen it, because they're not black, they don't believe it happens.
Right.
And the police officers they encounter are friendly because, if you police a friendly neighborhood, you don't have problems typically.
Like I said,
Well-
we can all agree on how prevalent or disagree on how prevalent it is and all of that, but there seems to be those two extremes where the young people that I talk to are just like, no, it's happening every day, all the time. Every cop is racist, which isn't true. And then you have the older white people that are just like, the cops are here to protect us, and everyone who gets hurt by them just deserved it. And it's like, no, dude,
because you're old and white. So
I thought Bernie Sanders made you old and Republican. What
right,
happened?
yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. We'll obviously this is a story that hits very close to home for us.
It's I don't see it being over.
No, we've seen this multiple times here in St. Louis. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think our city can take credit for Black Lives Matter because.
Right. But again, it's been 3 years. What have you accomplished? We blocked a lot of roads. Everyone hates you. Like they say, well, the movement is growing.
Well,
yeah.
Not everybody hates them because a lot of them are out in the fucking streets with them.
Yeah, but
so.
still,
I still sympathize with them.
And
I cannot. I just cannot at all.
I do.
Like I said,
do.
I gave them a chance. I agree with what they're trying to do, but I can't agree with.
It's in the same way
tactics.
I support the spirit of Antifa. But you're fighting fascism. Sounds wonderful.
See, I
might disagree on your tactics.
I draw the line a
I
little
will not
bit
support Antifa
on
at all.
Antifa. I
I don't support them. I support their.
But I
Even
support
that
initial.
because I know as a conservative, I get called a fascist constantly.
That's because you are a
It's like, well,
fascist.
it's
Why
a
you
fascist, so let's just beat them up. And it's like, no, you can't. So I think that the amount of fascists that they've probably actually fought against is like 0.03%.
Right.
Like the most of the majority are just people that disagree with them and they're just beating them up.
What's funny too is that like they're fighting fascism with
Not a lot of
fascism
room.
in a lot of places.
Right.
Yeah,
that's probably the only fascist they've really fought is when they mistake their own guys for a
Right.
fascist and then beat
Ben
themselves up.
Shapiro's here. Let's not let him talk. Like that's some dumb, like
But
that's
Shapiro doesn't
fascistic.
say anything crazy. Like he's not a Milo Yiannopoulos. You can disagree with him.
Yeah.
But he's coming from a point of like, this is what I believe, and I'll tell you why.
Right.
You know.
So I don't know. I wouldn't go so far, but I think that as far as this story goes, we're gonna stick with it. We're gonna keep updating.
Yeah. It just blows my mind that no
maybe get on
one,
down there.
all of these protesters for all these years can't think of anything constructive to do. Like,
Well, because sadly, the only constructive thing is the protest, and it's not an instant.
it's not even constructive.
It's
like,
not. It is. If this amount of people showed up every day and shutting down the businesses,
Yeah.
After a month, we would start to see change. After
I
a
don't think
year,
we'll
Yeah,
see-
and
after
we haven't even gotten into that, and we can kind of wrap up this segment with that little point. But the economic toll that this is taking on St. Louis,
been significant.
it's not hurting
we
the
have-
cops though.
it's
not
not.
hurting.
But how long until the mayor has to start thinking about my
long-
city is dying?
How long until the white people have to start thinking, "Holy shit, we're not."
Like
able
how many
to
white
run
people are upset that
businesses
you two
anymore."
are
Yeah,
coming?
but even then, to me, that seems like a poor solution as well, because now you're strong arming the judicial system to just come to the conclusions you want. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe this guy, the Stockley guy, is innocent. I don't think so.
Okay, but I think,
what if he is?
Yeah, but I'm thinking that this is on a bigger level than Jason Stockley. Like what you need to do is strong arm the judicial system into holding police accountable for their actions.
What you
Yeah,
ultimately
totally.
need
Well,
to
it's not
do
the
is you
judicial,
need to
that's
make
like-
them too scared to let these guys off because they know what's going to come.
I don't want to make anyone too scared. I want the police to be able to hold themselves accountable. So the judicial system doesn't have much to do with it, except for in this case.
But
they
you'll never
do.
have the police hold themselves accountable. You need an independent.
You've gotta find a way
You
to-
need an independent agency on every
Right.
single one.
And
of
we
these.
have one in internal affairs, but they're not.
Yeah.
As we've seen, they're not successful. They're
gotta
either
find
too
a way
corrupt
to-
or they're too nice or they're
Right.
too lenient.
Yeah.
Because Debbie Wasserman Schultz can work for the DNC and then be let go and then wind up on Hillary Clinton's campaign in 24 hours. That's what the police are doing.
Right,
The police are the police take care
gotta
of
find
their
a way
own.
to.
It's a
but
brotherhood.
again,
It's
you've
a
gotta find a
brotherhood, it
way where
is.
the protest affects that. The problem is that they're not. They're saying, "Well, we're
But
just
then
hurting everyone economically."
Is
That's
there
just-
anything you can do that would hurt the police that is
There probably
that's
is.
lawful?
Stop
Well,
eating tickets.
Yeah.
They have all the power. We have no power. That's
Yeah.
kind of what they're protesting about.
You
Is that we
gotta-
have no repercussions.
Well, I think the
when
best
they
way
treat
to
us
do
badly.
it is you have to protest at the police stations peacefully. I think that you don't attack the cities and the economic areas and things like that. You need to work to bolster up the economic areas. You also have to
Maybe-
sign petitions that say we're going to take more tax dollars away from the cops.
Yeah.
And do that.
Yeah.
That's
Target
the
some of
way
these
to do it.
laws
Yeah,
that like
that's actually that's a good platform.
Get the people behind that, not just let's just block a road.
Yeah, because I mean I do think that that's a good point because when you do the whole U2 and Ed Sheeran are canceling concerts. You're costing the city millions of dollars in revenue.
Take that.
All of the people that already don't understand your cause are going, well, now you're just out here costing money.
If anything's going to turn white girls against the Black Lives Matter, it's canceling Ed Sheeran's concert.
I know. Right. No, I hate this now. Yeah, so again, you've got to hit. If you want to see the cops be held accountable, you've got to find a way to do that.
I wish they would have these protests more like election based, or more focused on the politics and like, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to get registered to vote. You need to vote on these elections when these laws come up. We need a petition to change these laws,
and that takes time. And I think
it takes organization. You have to have people.
But I think people just have that knee jerk reaction, and especially in our generation, it's just that instant gratification where they just want things to be better now.
Yeah,
it's like you have to work for it. Well, we don't want to.
Right.
It's like,
no, we want it tomorrow.
We just want to block the road. That'll help.
Well, and I do think
the first thing they tried to do too was get on a exit or an entrance ramp to a road and got turned away by police.
Right, and they're like, no,
their first thought was block a road.
The police did. It's weird to have this conversation because on one side of the conversation, you kind of chastise the police. You say like, well, you aren't being held accountable, and we need to fix that. But then on the other side, you have to go, well, are they handling the response to this well? Because you still want them to do that.
Yeah,
so,
I think ultimately,
and I think they have too.
It's like when someone yells at a fast food worker. You really should be mad at like their boss for not allowing enough money. The people who own the place. We should be mad at the people setting these laws and letting this go on and not fixing it, because the police are they're told they have a job and they're told to do it, and they think they're serving this oath they took.
Right. You got to remember that we get to vote on this constantly. Every single election, there is some sort of measure.
So low in non-presidential elections.
There's always a measure saying, "Hey, do you want to fund the police more?" I always vote no because I don't like where the tax dollars are going.
Yeah, although I think it's the same thing with schools. Though, if you take away money, it's just going to become worse. I fear at least.
Yeah. I think,
but you do have to change some regulation.
Because they're still going to use that money for new guns. They're just going to skimp on training.
Yeah,
right.
But that's the way I feel like the military budget can be cut, and we can cut redundancies and not lose safety while still saving money. I think there's too much oversight. There's too much waste that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, there is. And again, when the police can, investigate themselves and whatnot, first you got to stop that. Then you got to hit them where it hurts. It's got to be the tax revenue. It's got to be voting. We have power. We don't use it.
Yeah.
We say that the cops have all the power, but it's really not true.
Yeah, we need it. We need.
You put collectively, we have power. But that's the problem.
When you protest illegally, so you block a road, you have just given them all the power because now they clearly do have power over you. You're breaking the law. That's their job, is to enforce the law. We just need to change the laws.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. So obviously we'll keep you up to date on this story. I have a feeling we'll be talking about it more. And I have a feeling we'll be doing more stuff on Facebook with it too. So as I said in my update last night on Facebook, I will keep a feed anytime that there's a feed to this story. Anytime I got people on the street that are streaming it live on YouTube, or anytime I see like a news organization streaming it, I will keep these streams
we may
updated.
Try to get down there in the next couple nights. Depends on we
right.
Really don't want to get down to something violent. But
we have to. We'll work out the logistics and scheduling and whatnot. But yeah, I think that'll wrap this one up for at least right now.
Hopefully, it doesn't get worse.
Right.
For President Trump, a new emphasis on working with Democrats on tax reform and other issues, despite sharp differences in the past.
If you look at some of the greatest legislation ever passed, it was done on a bipartisan manner.
Immigration was the focus at a White House dinner the president hosted for Democratic leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer.
I think we're fairly close, but we have to get massive border security.
But Democrats are only willing to go so far. And that does not include support for a border wall with Mexico, says Schumer.
Look, I made it so clear to the president that there is not going to be a wall. At one point he said to me, "Go easy on the wall." I said no.
Many Republicans oppose the president's outreach to Democrats, which began with an agreement last week to put off fights over the budget and raising the debt ceiling. After the failure to repeal and replace Obamacare, the next goal is tax reform, says House Speaker Paul Ryan.
All right, we're back. So, aside from protests going on all week over the last couple of days, a few other things happened earlier in the week. One of which is that Trump has become a Democrat.
Yeah, yes.
Reverted back to his natural form.
Right.
Right, yeah. He really, I mean, seemingly he really has become a Democrat. At least he's found friends with the Democrat.
Right. And again, I don't think he's being that much of a Democrat, but why
no, but
people
it's funny
are
to
saying,
say.
Yeah, why people
I
are
still don't
saying
endorse him. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Basically, he got conservatives pretty upset with him because he decided to strike a deal with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer on the hurricane relief, basically allowing them, getting them on board to sign off on the relief, and for the debt ceiling, but only putting it out for 3 more months.
Yeah,
right.
Until what month is it? November,
December, I think. Yeah,
end of the
which we talked about that one last week, and then he had a dinner this week with Democrats over, was it tax reform?
Tax reform.
Yeah.
And that's
which
where
is what he's trying to push.
And that's
and I think it also shows how much he does not like the people that he's had to work with Republican wise. He also
had a meeting with them over infrastructure, I believe, this week with Democrats.
Which I think those two are problems that Democrats have been screaming about. They can get behind.
So he met with him Tuesday, Wednesday, and I heard that they were doing something either Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, he is, which I think that he's doing it for a couple of reasons. I think it's a challenge to Republicans. Like, it's him calling them out and being like, look,
we tried it.
I've tried working with you, and you clearly don't have your shit together.
Because they don't.
Because they don't.
It's kind of like throwing down the gauntlet. Can you work together better than the Republicans?
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's really been interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still think it's kind of dangerous waters for him.
Oh, it's super dangerous
because he's handing control to the Democrats.
Yeah, and now they can come, like they've already said. And
he's basically like, because the way that they're going to take it, the Democrats, it's going to them. They're going to look at this as an opportunity to lead him down the path that they want him to go.
Right.
And because he's basically said, if you put something forward that I can agree with, I'll sign it. And that's not something that he's saying to Republicans anymore.
Right.
So,
well, because they can't agree on anything.
No, because they can't. And so it makes total sense then why Republicans are upset, but they have nobody to be mad at but themselves, which we discussed
from
last week.
Trump's point of view, they had 7 years where they were screaming about repealing health care. He came in, gave them an opportunity, and they fumbled it.
Right.
Of course he's going to be mad.
And the reason why conservatives are upset is twofold. One is because he handed Chuck Schumer the key, is basically saying, when December comes, he's also telling Republicans, you have until the end of the year to get something done. But by the way, I'm handing all the bargaining chips to the Democrats.
Right.
So that happened. That's not. It makes their job much more difficult, and they already weren't producing results to begin with. But the big thing that has conservatives upset is DACA. So he came in and he did the whole thing. We covered the DACA and everything.
DACA's been so interesting for the last week, too, because it's been on again, off again, on again, off again.
Well, I'm getting so confused. The deal seems to be coming from with the Democrats is that he met with them and said, I can totally be on board with getting DACA legislatively, not through executive order, but I'm going to need massive border security for it.
It's really the first time I've seen Trump making a deal while as president.
However, what's interesting too, though, is
a big deal at least.
Yeah, and one that seems like he could be successful. Here's
why this has gotten confusing, because when I say it's been on again, off again, like in one sentence he's like, all right, we're rescinding DACA, and like, so it appears anyway that like DACA is going away, and then 2 days later, he's like, but I mean, Congress is going to fix it. So, like, now it appears that DACA is not going away. Wait a minute. Hold on. Then he works with Democrats, and Democrats come out and say, oh, we had a really good talk. We're going to get DACA done, blah, 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 blah. So it looks like DACA is not going away. And then he comes out the next day and goes, because they said, when Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer came out, they said, we're going to get DACA done.
Don't worry about DACA.
And we're not funding the wall. And then he came out 24 hours later and was like, no, they're definitely funding the wall. Like, what is happening?
No, the interview I saw with him was he basically said they're not funding the wall. Like, he kept saying, the wall will come later. The wall is not going to be in any of these talks, but we're still pushing the wall. The wall will happen.
The wall won't happen.
Now the big narrative with Donald Trump is we're renovating the wall. So we're still building it. We're just building up the parts that are already there,
Right.
Which is a bullshit excuse to.
Oh yeah.
Again, I'm
Did you
not
know that
wall
there's
guy.
there's dry rotted wood there? Like we're fixing that. We're touching it up.
Right, termites are a big deal.
Right.
Illegal
Putting
termites.
some whitewash on that.
So that's the big, and that's what's got conservatives. And this is where because constantly I bring up whenever people say, oh, well, the mainstream media is reporting that this is happening. And I say, yeah, but listen to the people. People don't give a shit about this. This is another thing where all the conservative media is saying, we're done with Trump over DACA. We're burning our MAGA hats and all that. But then if you look at people who are interviewed, they're like, no, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know, though, if those people... I think you have to look at where people are being interviewed, because I would bet if you asked, like, Southwestern Republicans how they feel about potential amnesty, which is how this is going to be billed.
That's how they do it. It's not amnesty.
That's how it's going to be billed. And that's what,
how they say it.
That's
but
what
again,
people that don't know things, that
Right.
listen to the media, are going to think.
Teabaggers are going to call it amnesty.
Right. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of them in the South. And when you, like, I do think people that are affected on a like in real life in their lives by illegal immigration, people that actually have people like coming through their neighborhoods from the border, those types of people are going to look at anything that can be billed as amnesty as a as not living up to your campaign.
But that's why I think it was so important, the timing. Like, while he's working with Democrats, he also sends out a tweet, criticizing the terrorist attack in London before we even have any concrete proof of it being Islamic. But he just goes ahead and assigns that blame because it backs up his immigration, what he wants to change about immigration.
How I feel about that is that you pretty much know at that point. It's not like this is a random thing that's happening in London. Like, whenever someone blows something up, you can probably assume that it's this. And they always get mad at him for rightly always saying that this is what it is.
Yeah, but it's a dangerous
like
thing it's a dangerous thing to assume things too, because you can assume that a Christian church that gets shot up is an Islamist terrorist too. If you want to be wrong, it could also be a crazy fucking right-wing guy shooting black people in South Carolina.
By that logic, cops could say black people commit more crimes, statistically.
Yeah.
But we know that's not the case. It's not because of something inherently wrong. It's because of the law stacked against them.
This sucks because
the problem is with it has all been terrorist.
Yeah, I mean, they'll accept the Quebec guy,
right?
Yeah, it wasn't Islamic in any way.
That's on North America, and when we're looking at Europe, it typically is.
Well, but then you look in America, at least, mostly domestic. The guy who ran through the crowd wasn't affiliated with any church, I don't think. At least from what I read, he's just a crazy white guy.
Right, just a crazy dude.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Assuming is a dangerous thing because you can assume. And Charlottesville is a good example of that. When that happened, like we all had to be really careful, because those are running through a crowd is a tactic you could expect from either extreme.
Well, and both sides did it. They said, no, it was a neo-Nazi. The other side, no, it was actually a protester.
Right.
And it ended up being a neo-Nazi.
Of course it did. But I mean, Snopes had an article about this, about our Republicans, the right wing, more dangerous than the left wing. They statistically are. The two most dangerous groups are Islamic fanatics and Republican
The problem with that is
fanatics.
they usually go by 10 years, which I have gone after you for using that metric.
No, but what I just saw an article a couple days ago that only did, I want to say it was just 2015 and 16, and it showed that like 95% of like any type of terrorism, what would be labeled terrorism, was right-wing terrorism.
No,
it didn't take out.
Well, if you add in history, you go back in the like lynching. That was right-wing extremism.
Right.
Yeah, but that's not a problem we're dealing with now.
Right,
So
and
that's why I don't like going back.
Right, and I get that argument, but I'll send you the article. I'll try to find it early enough to link
with
to
all
it.
the
But there was
protests and all the beating
there was
up with
something that
Antifa,
I
just doubt
saw.
it.
There was something I saw that showed just the last couple of years, because I get that. Like, that's fair.
Yeah. If you go back 10 years ago, they didn't exist.
You could be like, there's that whole argument of like, well, T-Rexes used to be a problem. Yeah, but in 2017,
they were exponentially a problem.
You see Jurassic World? They still are.
They still are. So but it does seem Here's the thing, and you can bring up your point that we just talked about before we started recording, but the idea that could Democrats get behind if it turns out that Trump is more interested in getting something done and getting good press than actually which side he is which side he's handing the keys to, is it possible for the Democrats then, if he switches over and he just like fully embraces it, is it possible for him to get support from like the Democratic base? Maybe not.
It'll never happen, but in a fantasy world, I
don't think he could. I really don't.
I just don't see him ever settling down on his provocative.
Here's the problem that I have with it. He's not being a Democrat. Like, whenever people sit there, and this is what I don't understand with the conservative outlets that are so upset with DACA, we have jobs numbers that came out and said there are 6 million available jobs in America.
Right.
You're talking about 800,000 with DACA. There's more than enough jobs. On top of that, if this is they pivotal to the deal where he gets massive border security, that's something that we want. And the rest of it's inconsequential because, again, we have the jobs to support the DACA people. And they've been here for a majority of their lives.
Pose no threat.
On top of that, illegal immigration is down 75% since Trump's done it. On top of that, he's used ICE to deport a lot of dangerous illegals. So it'll record over it, so we're good.
Okay.
But so to me, whenever they say, well, we don't like it, it's like, he's doing he's getting Republican things done.
But how much of that dislike is because Trump turning to them is because of their own failings.
Yeah.
It reflects on what they haven't been able to accomplish in 8 months.
If you look back at what Trump said during the campaign and everything else, he's never said, I'm going to just do Republican things. I'm going to
No, he actually claimed he would. Yeah. He claimed that he was going to do bipartisanship.
Deal.
I mean, it took 8 months for him to try to strike a deal with Democrats, but I think that's how long he gave them enough chances to try it. Republicans kept failing.
Yeah, and they were playing obstructionist as well. So now they've kind of
So do you how do you think the voter holds the two sides accountable here? Do you think that I'm going to pose two scenarios here and we can debate them, I guess, in order or whatever.
Right.
But one, will Republican voters be dissatisfied enough with the fact that their party could not get their shit together to work with their president and vote them out, or will they be mad at Donald Trump for working with Democrats enough to not turn out as much the next time? So we'll start with the first one.
Both could be likely, but
here's my thoughts on it. First off, when it comes to the polling that I have seen, yes, conservatives are upset with conservatives in Congress.
Right.
They probably will vote them out. I know me and you differ on what we think the outcome of that will be. I don't see an outcome where they end up accidentally getting Democrats to come in to replace them. I think they're just going to, the people who run, who say, yeah, I'm cool with Donald Trump, I'm going to work to get
it depends. I think
they'll vote them in.
I think it depends on the ground game when it comes to that.
It always does.
Because you like it's easy to think, and it's understandable to think that like somewhere where Jeff Sessions gets elected, for 8 terms in a row, that's probably a conservative thinking place, right? So it's going to be hard if they decide to vote somebody like that out. Then that doesn't mean that they're going to switch to a Democrat. But here's the thing. If Democrats have a good enough ground game and go, this is a weak candidate that they're running now, and they try to pull the thing that they tried to do in Georgia a couple months ago with like the 30-year-old kid, that like they could potentially, if not take those seats, they could make a run for those seats, which would help their future strategy. But
you could say that. I mean, to me, still you have to win. So just being like, well, we got closer than ever, and
no, that's fair. But if it is true, if they see vulnerabilities in the candidates that primary, and
careful with that shaking, bro.
Yeah, camera down.
My Italianness.
You're gonna be slapping your shoe on the podium.
Just like hear me, punching the table over and over again. Sorry, folks, the microphone didn't pick that up. The video definitely did, though.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think that there's like potential for them to primary themselves into a spot where the Democrats on the ground in these places go, look, they're running a sickling against us, like a craven. And
again, for 2020,
a usurper.
maybe. But again, when you look at the 2018 field, more Democrats are up for re-election than conservatives, and the conservatives that are up for re-election are in very solidly.
They're very entrenched.
I do not see a scenario where, and I know that they keep saying it, like, oh, they're going to win back the House and all this. I do not see.
It depends on how the next year plays out too. Because we have a year to go, and there's going to be more scandal. There's going to be more.
The second part of that question, where you're talking about how Trump will
Republicans just don't send any dick pics for the next.
Don't
year.
like any
That's
porn
Anthony Weiner.
pictures.
That's the Democrats. But
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Ted Cruz just had his little faux pas. It's not very much different.
Right. We'll get to that.
Right.
But yeah, to
when
the
it comes
second
to,
point.
for Donald Trump, all the polling that I have seen has basically said that, again,
The polls are wrong.
that people, when you look at Republicans supporting him, his support has gone up. Just over all Republicans. When you look at people who voted for Donald Trump, he's retaining 90% of them. They like it. He campaigned on I'm a deal maker. That's what he's doing right now. Again, these are good deals that he's doing. We're cool with that. When it comes to, and now you've even seen his numbers rise a little bit with Democrats. So I've seen people phrase that a lot, saying, well, this is going, because they're burning their MAGA hats and all of that stuff, like, this is going to hurt him. I don't see it.
But
I don't see it at all.
what I will say, there seems to be more Democrats in the United States than, because if his polling numbers are 37% approval, and that's most of his base staying on, that means there's 37% of hardcore Republicans. So, like,
Well,
that
he
mean there's
didn't win
60% of Democrats, or
The
you know,
hardcore
50%,
Republicans-
10%?
I don't think that
independent?
hardcore Republicans voted for him. I think that he brought in a bunch of people that were like myself, that were independent.
I think, though, a lot more people held their nose than would tell you that they held their nose and voted for him.
Well,
there are people that did not like Donald Trump and did
See,
not
that's why-
want him to be the face of.
They didn't like
There-
Hillary Clinton.
But-
there is a
right,
time,
yeah.
there's a possibility that both could happen, that these seats up in Congress can be changed, and
Right.
they could also vote Trump out. If stuff goes really bad, we could see
Well,
everyone getting
and even if
ousted.
stuff doesn't go really bad, you pointed out last week that like we don't know the roster yet.
No,
so
we don't.
Yeah.
so there
Whoever-
could be there. Honestly, if you're being honest, and I think you will, that you could see yourself in a position where if Cory Booker said all the right things, you could see yourself considering a vote for Cory Booker.
Yeah,
Like-
I probably
what if-
wouldn't, even though I've said before that,
But
like,
that's-
Cory Booker's a guy
But
I might.
but my point though is like you are a Trump supporter.
Right.
But before you were a Trump supporter, you were a Bernie supporter.
Right.
So it's not
Never say never.
It's
That's
not
a strange thing
impossible,
to
right?
have
It's not
be true about
impossible
you.
to think
Well, they said
that
that-
somebody better could come along, and even people who like Donald Trump go, "Yeah, I like him, but
Yeah.
I like this better."
Again,
If they put up if the Rock turns Democrat and runs against like the president, that's a
If The Rock runs, I promise you that like the sound bites and on this show will be the greatest ever. Like, I just start every fucking episode with that.
yeah, it will be awesome. Again, I think that he's getting things done, and that's what I wanted to see. So I think it's going to be very hard for me to change my vote when I'm seeing everything that I wanted to see happen.
I disagree. I don't agree with most of what he's done.
Oh, I love it. I love almost everything that he's done. With like, a few things, he won't shut up about the wall. The wall's dumb. So I think that's dumb. But again,
I don't like his
immigration
LGBT ban. I mean, I don't know. It's just like but
Yeah,
personal level. It's hard to.
Again, yeah, to me that's one where I personally don't see it. But again, he didn't say this is what I want to do. He said this is what people that are in positions of power in the military said we should do, and I'm going to trust them
But I
on
mean,
it.
they really did. Didn't they come out and say that like generals were coming out and contradicting him right
it
after
was
that?
to
were
me
some.
to me the way that you spin it has a little bit of sugar sprinkled on
Yeah.
it because the way that it felt at the time when he did
Yeah.
the ban
But then
was he pulled a sentence out of something that could have been said at any point in time. Like
Yeah.
he could have talked to a general in 1998 and they said that and he's like, well, the generals told
Well,
me.
I saw a bunch of big generals that were saying, yes, this is what we want to do. When I did see a couple generals as well that were like, no, this is what we don't want to do.
Right.
So
Also, kind of mad that he would make that announcement via Twitter because it's not official,
no, it's not.
but we have to treat it because it's the word of our president.
Yeah.
It's important to us, but
Yeah,
it
to me, the
doesn't
Twitter
seem to
thing
be
don't
important to
bother me.
vet his own thoughts sometimes,
No.
which is infuriating.
Yeah, the Twitter thing doesn't bother me. I think you're going to keep seeing deals with. I think him and Chuck Schumer are going to. And Nancy
He
Pelosi
and Chuck
figure
Schumer
this
were
out.
friends before
Yeah.
this administration started.
Did you see that hot mic moment?
When he
Yeah.
said Trump likes me,
That was
or
the
something.
only time a
Trump
hot
likes me.
the only time that a hot
Sounded so
mic
sycophantic.
the only time that a hot mic hasn't really caught something that was like scandalous though.
I
Like
know.
he was basically just like, hey, yeah, this is what I told him, which everything that he told him didn't seem schemy and seemed like
Yeah.
he was like, hey, sometimes you gotta step to the left and sometimes you gotta step to the right. That, you know, if you step only one way, you've boxed yourself in. That's true. That's a good conversation.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they had that.
Right.
So
Also, I thought he could have been saying it more of like we're swaying him, like he likes me, like I'm in, like
Right.
I have
Now I've got some leverage here.
Influence, yeah.
Because they said, and for Trump, again, he knows how to use leverage. So he said, the whole DACA thing, he knew that would be a big bargaining chip. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, well, on top of it, I don't think that it should have gone through the executive branch. It should have gone through the legislative. So I'm going to allow Congress to do it, which is really him saying, I'm going to let Chuck Schumer step up. Now let's make a deal. And
Right.
it looks like they've been making a good deal.
Well, and you know that there are enough of those. There are enough of the John McCain's and Lindsey
I
Graham's.
think John McCain is gone. Well, obviously because of the brain cancer.
Right now, as far as DACA goes, there are enough Republicans that are moderate enough that they don't need the rest. They don't need much. The Democrats need a handful of votes, and they can. And
Right.
Trump will sign DACA. So, and I think they have those handful of votes
I think they do,
because
too.
they definitely
They're
have
just
some
waiting
moderate
to-
conservatives
Yeah.
that they can work with.
They just have to iron out the details of
Right.
what is the security.
But at least the conservative media had pushed it as like this was a bargaining chip so that he could get funding for the wall, and
That wasn't what he was saying.
is never going to get funding for the wall. Congress is never going to give him that.
Yeah, you're gonna have to-
Republicans and conservatives, or I'm sorry, Republicans and Democrats in Congress don't want to fund the wall.
we don't need the
no,
wall.
No,
they're not
it's the biggest waste of money.
So the conservative
he needs to
media,
just get with-
the conservative media would do themselves.
But it seems like he's
more of a-
boxed himself in a corner with the wall. He's talked about it so much, his fan base is
Yeah.
somewhat
Yeah.
expecting
He
it.
just needs to go private with it 100% and say, listen, I'm going to work with private companies, and there's enough people out
Only
there that
Mexican
will-
companies.
But no, who's going to pay for it though? Who's going to pay for that?
There's enough rich people out there, rich.
But I think rich people would
that
do
would
their,
do
their
it.
homework and realize it's not worth the money.
Yeah.
You're
There's
not
a lot of people that are
preventing
vying for
anything.
it
right?
now.
You,
They're
no,
trying to get it-
you're not
trying to
really
get it
going to
built.
prevent anything, and you're going to build something that stands there and has no benefit other than
No, and I think
spending the
if-
money on it one time.
If someone wants to spend money at the border, they would rather equip, citizen brigades with their own
when
rifles.
rich
Right.
people and companies invest money, they want to make money.
There's a return.
Right.
Building a big ass piece of board.
Well, it's not even
on
building it. You have
the-
to maintain it for years after. That's an investment. you
Right.
know? If someone
Yeah.
punches a
And
hole
it-
through it, puts a ladder over it, you got to fix that.
It's a consistent investment too.
And it's a big wall.
that garners no
Let's
money.
remember that the wall is law. Like, we are on law right now. We are supposed to have a wall. It was voted in. It was supposed to be a double-fenced wall. That's on the books.
Yeah.
No one ever did it.
No, because
No
it
one
doesn't make sense financially
No,
to do it.
it doesn't.
It's
But again-
Especially when the numbers of people crossing the border have plummeted since
Right.
Trump took
Like-
office. It's a
Yeah.
problem that solved itself.
It already wasn't a problem.
Yeah, well, it really wasn't.
Right, it
Most of
wasn't
the
a
people coming
problem.
up aren't from Mexico anyway.
Right.
They're from further south, and they're
Well, that's why
fleeing
even
for asylum.
even Trump has said, like, that we're doing it for human trafficking and drug trafficking. We're not doing it for illegal immigration.
Which is also bullshit. We're doing it for votes. That,
Well,
I mean,
if we're being-
that's
if
what
we're
we're
being-
doing it
but
for.
that's where
real.
he's.
That's
he
also
switched
why
it
we're
over.
not going to do it, because
Yeah.
he knows that he can just keep feeding those people that line of bullshit,
Yeah.
and they'll keep hoping that it's right around the corner, and they'll keep voting.
Right.
And
What's funny is that we could get the wall, and it wouldn't stop any of the problems that they're concerned about. It's
Not
not
at
going to
all.
stop immigration. It's
No.
not going to stop
No.
violence.
Well, I
No.
think that because what I've heard
people
him say,
have been breaking barriers for thousands of
Yeah.
years.
Right.
Like,
right. Well, he's trying to get more people to man the walls too, so they can't break it. Because people just seem like think that like you could just take a rope and climb over it. No, there's people to stop.
if only
you.
he could
But,
call
I mean,
Walter
that's a
Frey.
massive amount of territory that you'd have
Yeah.
to staff. That's a lot of jobs,
You know
a
who
lot
he
of
needs?
payment.
Just like in Game of Thrones, the wall only doesn't work when there's no one to man it.
He needs Walter Frey on his team.
Oh,
And
man, Game of Thrones just everything in life.
It's everything, man. No, but I think this is my prediction here, and if anyone knows, I'm great at predictions, so this is just going to go exactly the way that I planned it
until
to be.
it all
Nostrum
comes falling down.
Hasn't happened yet.
I
We'll see
used
with the
to
Russia
I
thing.
used to be great at. You've been great at predictions for like 6 months.
Oh, it's been like a year and a half.
like
On record, 6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that this is what we're going to see. I think that DACA's going to happen, but it's going to come with everything that he talked about with legal immigration, that they're going to need to sign off on that, which I don't know why Democrats wouldn't, because that's how Canada does it, and they seem to love Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to get that, and you're going to get, I just had, not the wall funding. The wall funding is going to be gone, tax reform. You're going to have to couple it with tax reform. He's going to get what he wants with tax reform.
It's going to be Democrats that get what they want on tax reform too, though.
Democrats want to do it too.
Yeah.
Like both of them can agree. This is what we want to see happen. It was
Yeah.
just so toxic before. So now
But you
he says-
remember back to the campaign trail where Donald Trump said these companies, these hedge fund managers, he specifically called out, you're going to have to pay more. You
he's
just
even
are.
said now with the
Yeah.
negotiations, he's like, the rich are probably going to have to pay more.
The Democrats are going to get more out of tax reform than Republicans are.
I don't think so. I think both are going to get exactly what they want.
I don't know, man. I think Donald Trump is at a point where he's done with Republicans for a minute So
yeah, because
I think
he's going to give them a chance on one bill and see what they can do with it, and then make a decision.
I think he has a point to prove, and I actually don't think it's a bad thing that he has a point to prove, because for as much as I dislike him for individual
bravo
things,
for offering the olive branch, being the bigger person. I did not expect that from Trump.
No, not at all.
I did, because I knew going in with the campaign where he was like, yeah, I'm a deal maker. That's what I do. I'm going to make deals.
And if he forces them to work, no matter whether you like him or don't like him, you can still hold that opinion. It's a good thing if he forces Congress to work. Congress hasn't been working for a decade.
Well, just now we're hearing them talk about, well, maybe if they change the rules a little bit, maybe we could stay in the Paris Climate Accords. We'll talk about it. Because to me, that was a bad deal. And he was like, no, it's a bad deal. I'm not going to do it.
4D chess. This whole 8 months has been setting up for this deal-making streak.
This whole 2 years he's been like, all right, listen, Chucky, I'm gonna run as a Republican.
Like, imagine this whole presidency is like the first season of a TV show, and it ends with this twist reveal of like, gotcha, motherfucker.
We're getting M. Night Shyamalan right now. God damn it.
No. We're getting trumped, literally.
Right.
But still, I mean, we're coming to the end of his first year in office. We're on the last quarter of it. Like, this is best case scenario, in my opinion. We're actually talking about Congress working together. We're actually talking about getting good deals done with both sides. And on top of everything else we're seeing, like I said, illegal immigration down. We're seeing jobs come up. There's more than enough jobs for everyone. Possibly changing the rules so that the jobs that we can't fill can be filled by people who immigrate.
Right.
This is all awesome.
and we're also not dealing with a rookie president. We're someone who had no experience really politically. Now he's had a little bit. So we could expect to see a shift of him having. I mean, obviously he can learn stuff.
He seems to be a guy who I know that people want to say he's dumb. I've never believed it. To me, he seems to really understand these issues.
Intelligence is like, you can have it in different areas and lack it in others.
Yeah. Is he going to say terrific and great and wonderful a lot? Yes, he is. But I think that he really understands the way that this puzzle is put together, and he is going to say, well, all right, I need this piece. What pieces do you want? And he seems to be pretty good at it. And again, I know that if you look in the comments from Democrats and NPR and things like that, they call him orange and 4-year-old and everything else. But that's not what I'm seeing.
We all revert to childhood insults.
Yeah. You used to always say to me all the time.
Oh, bummer.
It was Obama. It's always going to be Obama for me because I voted for him, and Obama, it didn't work out. But he didn't do what I wanted him to do.
I mean, I felt that way about every politician I've ever voted for in my life.
But this is the first time where it's not. Like, I feel like because you always say, like, this is what you voted for, and I would be like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
This is what I voted for. This right here that we're doing.
Right. You voted for all of it, though, because you were told what you were going to get, and you have gotten what you were told you were going to get.
Not entirely. Like I said,
can't get the sizzle without the steak.
Right.
I went from, I think, 26 points ahead to 13 points ahead. And I needed about 18 points in order to be sure I could win Pennsylvania. I watched how analysts, who I have a great deal of respect for, like Nate Silver, burrowed into all the data and said, but for that Comey letter, she would have won. So it was very personal to me. I think my general election prospects were so badly damaged because of that even though I was starting to come back, it was not enough time to overcome it. But even though that was the primary blow to my campaign at the very end, it has to be looked at in context with the Russians weaponizing information, negative stories about me, this whole WikiLeaks beginning to leak in early October of John Podesta's emails, which if you've read them all, they're pretty anodyne, but they were taken out of context. Stories were made up about them. We now know Facebook was taking money from Russian companies to run negative stories about me. If you look at all of this, yes, it affected me and my campaign. But I am more concerned now going forward that we haven't come to grips with what it means for future elections. I would also add that the voter suppression that we now know had been in the works and really put into effect in a lot of states like Wisconsin, North Carolina, etc., played a role. And then let's not forget sexism and misogyny, which are endemic to our society, and certainly, as I write in my chapter called On Being a Woman in Politics, have to be factored in as well.
What happened? Oh, I guess we're about to get into it. So we'll go ahead into the rest of the week now. Obviously, Hillary Clinton's on a book tour now. Yay!
That's what's happened.
Because when you think to yourself, what do I not get enough of in my political day? Hillary Clinton.
Which, I mean, it is standard procedure somewhat. For if you lose an election, you write a book.
Yeah.
Romney wrote one.
Yeah, it's just not standard procedure to be so goddamn pouty about it. So,
but it's so good.
Still a historic election, though. I mean,
So she's got a book that's come out, and like we'll say too, real quick, while I've got my mic messing up on me, we'll say too that we're gonna probably grab. Well, we're not probably going to. We're gonna get that book. I've
got it in my hand.
Yeah.
So,
we're gonna
copy now.
We'll do a full segment on the book once we've both read it. So what we'll do though she's been on a book tour. She's been doing signings. She's been doing a ton of interviews for the last week. And, oh, my God, it's been 10 months, and I forgot how much I don't want to hear Hillary Clinton.
I think most Democrats are thinking the same things. They're probably just like, dude, go away.
Please stop.
There have been a number of headlines in very liberal publications about, like, why I just want her to, like, please retire.
Right. Yeah. It's... Here's my problem, Hillary.
You bark like a dog. It's weird.
I think
no one knows why.
I think that there are actually some valid points. Like there are some excuses that she gives. You've seen her in interviews with Anderson Cooper this week. You've seen her on CBS and NBC and all of the networks.
CNN also.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
So and she's been. If you've been watching at least the clips the highlights that they've been showing all week, you know that she's given a lot of excuses. Russia was the reason for her loss. Women, Bernie Sanders, Comey,
the FBI in general.
And my problem is
and myself.
That's
half-heartedly myself.
That's the problem that I have is that like I do think that she has some points. I do think that you can look at James Comey and be like, had that not happened, this very well could have gone.
I mean, we can play what ifs all day though with an election that close.
But my problem is if you're gonna point out these types of things, that this is the reason that I didn't win the election, you should also have a little bit, you should be humble enough to say, I also didn't run a good campaign. I also am partly to blame for the outcome of the election.
And granted, none of us have read it yet, but I do get the feeling she attempts that, or at least comes close to it, and then kind of pulls on it.
Yeah. So and again, we haven't read the book yet, but as far as the interviews go,
pretty much. I'm not going to elaborate on what I did wrong, but
I'm right. But everybody else screwed
all
me,
of this shit.
and again, I do think that there are points there. James Comey, I think, played a big part in that.
The timing alone played a big part,
right?
Which I mean, we should have a ban on any kind of electioneering a week. But France does that. It was 1 week, 2 weeks before the election. You can't. No more ads. No more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We almost need that too because there's so many gotcha moments right at the end of everyone holding back the big blow.
Hold up.
What are you doing?
There's so much happening. Hit stop.
That's what happened.
All right, and we're back. We had some technical difficulties there. A little bit.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah,
that's what happens when you pull up an old track and you put and you start recording on it. You're like, why am I saying two things at the same time? But the audience doesn't hear any of it, so we just sound crazy.
Right.
Anyway,
so I'll try to jump back where we were talking about France and shutting down all of media. I don't want to see that. That's definitely Pete.
No, it didn't.
Oh, it didn't?
No.
Oh, shit.
There's so much shit happening in the studio right now.
But in America, I don't want to see any of our media get shut down. Even though the media was probably 90% negative towards Trump, and they were irritating, at least they were transparent. I could see what they were trying to accomplish and just ignore it.
Right.
But
it is a dangerous precedent to set.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know. I think it puts a bad taste in all of our mouths when you've got a candidate who, I'm not saying that. Look, and I will tell you right now, I would rather her be president than Donald Trump. I can say that unequively.
After 8 months of Trump, I
didn't believe that enough to cast a vote for her, but I would prefer
Which
her.
isn't true. Everyone knows you voted for her.
No, I didn't, and everybody knows that. So, but it puts a bad taste in my mouth. Even though I believe that like there were things that kind of screwed her, I also didn't vote for her because she was a bad candidate. And so to see somebody that now lost and is just coming out and saying, well, this is how everybody did me wrong, that I don't like that.
We haven't read the full book yet. So everything I've seen so far is her not going into why she messed up. It's just all of the other puzzle pieces.
Right.
And we could have totally flipped that over with Trump if he would have lost. He could have been like, hey, that entertainment expose or whatever it was.
Right.
Pivotal moment. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's true. I just don't know.
It was a pivotal moment. But
yeah, it was. I just don't know. I don't know. I
Without
guess
a time machine, we'll never really know what would have happened. But it's interesting that like we have her take now.
Yeah.
She was silent for
and
a
I haven't
couple months there.
Gotten too far into it, but so far, I want to put it on record that I love this book so far. It's so good. So I can't wait to do a full review on it.
That was some weird shit. So yeah. So we'll see. Once we get done with that book, obviously we'll
give us like a month.
Has Trump made any comment on the book yet?
He has. Yeah.
Okay.
He said that
So Sarah Huckabee Sanders has made a few comments on it too.
Yeah. Probably under his, hey, talk about this.
Right.
Throw this shit out.
About how. And he basically
Hillary Clinton had every excuse in the world.
Right, to be honest, like he basically just said, "But we backed up. This conversation backed up what his tweet was, which was to take some responsibility. You ran a shitty campaign.
Yeah,
and
but
she ran a horrible campaign.
He's been spamming that button for. I mean, he didn't run a much better one. I mean,
no, he didn't.
It was not a landslide on either way.
No.
Yeah.
Either one of them, it would have been lucky. It was a coin toss near the end.
Right, and I truly still believe that had either one of them ran against somebody better than the other.
Yeah.
That the outcome, we would not have either of them as president.
Yeah, I think Bernie probably would have won if it went down that
road. I think if Jeb Bush would have been the candidate, he would have beaten Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
and
I think
had
so too.
Bernie been the candidate, he would have beaten Donald Trump.
Yeah. Not Ted Cruz, though.
I'm
not signing off on that one.
I don't know that Ted Cruz could have, because I think he kind of would have had the same problem from the moderate conservatives. That would have been like
a problem with the evangelicals.
They would have had a different reason for not voting. Like they would have a different reason for disliking him than they did for disliking Trump. But I don't know that they would have gotten his vote any more than the other.
Right.
So yeah, we'll see. All right, so now we're going to finish up the show with something I promised you at the beginning of the show. Find out how Brandon's a heathen. So this is
you fucking heathen.
I think after 28 episodes we know.
yeah. It's become perfectly clear, Brandon. So interesting story this week that Frank knows about because Frank was there, but Mitch has only heard
I'm eager for it.
Bits and pieces of it. So let's just go into this. Obviously, Mitch and I play music. We've talked about it on the show several times. And in this moment,
good music.
We play good music. In this moment of shameless plugs, you can check us out at Good Morning Band on Facebook.
Keep your ears open.
Yeah, and you can check out Good Morning on SoundCloud.
At some point,
Probably should. But so anyway, Mitch and I have been playing music for a while, for about 6 or 7 years together, and it's gone through many variations.
Expansions and retractions.
Right. So for all intents and purposes, the people that so we used to have a band. It used to be a big thing, and it actually kind of went through several stages where it was a 5-piece band, and then it was a 4-piece band with different people and all this stuff. And then over the last few years, we're both dads. We've kind of slowed down on playing live and doing whatever, but we still get together and we record the music and whatnot. So anyway, that explanation is because the people involved in this story, when I met those people, it was at the time where we had just stopped playing live. It was a few years ago, and so when I had first met these people, I didn't even know if we were still a band at that point. Like we had literally just played our last show.
You just didn't do anything.
Right. So that's just to give you a perspective of how they think of it, because like when they think band, they don't think two guys that sit down and record music. Right. So anyway, so I'm with this group of people earlier in the week, and one of them is organizing an event, a music event in Ferguson, actually. And his point, this is the second time that he has done it, and his point, or the way that it is advertised as a Christian music festival, but
religious gathering.
It's called, it was something that, like, and I don't know what it was called, and I wouldn't say it anyway because I don't want to. Don't
throw shade, bro.
Right, I don't want to throw shade. So, but I know that like peace and love and God are all in the flyer, and it's all about bringing the community together and all this stuff, right? So, he was talking to some other people that we were mutually hanging out with, and he was talking about the fact that he was having trouble getting artists for it. Last year it was a hip hop. He's a Christian rapper, gospel rapper. I don't know which term he prefers, but so last year he billed it as a hip hop Christian thing, and got like a small showing, a decent showing for somebody who's organizing something on their own,
self-promoting,
right?
Yeah.
And so I respect that, and so this year he's not billing it that way. This year he's billing it as a like community Christian festival, right? So they're having a conversation about how he doesn't have enough artists to play this show. So you and I play music, right? Like I was like, okay, well, I'm here listening to this. I could maybe help you out, like. So I asked him, when is this thing? And I got the date of the thing. And I'm obviously, like, by 3 or 4 questions in, I'm inquiring about this event.
Without coming right out.
Right. So how many people are playing it? And blah, 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 blah. Oh, that would be really cool. Have you ever heard our music? And so then
we have a SoundCloud.
Right. So then I told him where he could find our music. And he was like, yeah, but you don't really do Christian music, do you? And I was like, no, I mean, we don't, it's not Christian music, but they're folk love songs, really. So
right.
No
one's going to be upset.
They're rather inoffensive,
right.
yeah.
Well, and me too. Like
Into the Ground is almost heavenly.
Well,
that woman.
If you think about it,
I got when I heard it.
No, if you think about Into the Ground, which will be our next release, the lyrics, you and I know what those lyrics
about. We've been asked
about.
that before. I think on the parking lot where we used to play music, some lady stopped and she was like, is that religious?
And it's not. It's about
Lord, what are gospel songs if not love songs to the Lord?
But it is a song. It is a song about birth, life, and death. Like it is a song that is supposed to be a little bit deep and make you think. So it's not a song. Anyway, so what I told him when I was asked if we did Christian music was, no, we don't, but we do folk love songs. And I like half jokingly was like, we could change girl to Jesus, and like, but I went into like my whole, because how, like, for me, like, I think all of us here are pretty, would consider ourselves artistic in a sense to a degree.
Musical more than artistic for me, but yeah.
So right, so I think about when I'm writing a song, I think about the kind of the way that I want this to come off, and the way that, and I also think that when I'm listening to a song that's not my own, it can mean whatever it means to me. That's not necessarily, because I've been in the writer's chair as well, and people have come up to me and said, hey, this song sounds religious. Hey, this song sounds like it's about this. And I'm like, no, you have it all wrong. That was about a pizza party that we had, and I just wrote it in a way that I wanted to write it. But so I was trying to kind of put that in a short, sweet way, version of that into my conversation was like, really, your audience can interpret our songs however they want. They're by no means anti-Christian. They're by no means anti-theological or whatever. So then another friend chimed in and was like, and just came out and said it and was like, have you asked Brandon about his band? And then he stared very subtly backing away, and you can attest.
It was like, in a way, they didn't want to offend you, but also was very adamant that you were not going to play this.
Right. He said to mutual friend that to friend number 2 that look, I just want to make sure that I know. It's hard to vet all of. He specifically used that term. It's hard to vet all of the artists, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. That was the first way he put it. The second
It's a pretty good way to put it. I'm not gonna lie.
The second way that he put it was, I just want to make sure that everybody knows the Lord. A lot of people try to make money off the Lord, and their heart's not in the right place, and that's also a fair point.
Yeah.
However,
it's weird to say to a guy you've known for like over a year, I would say.
Right.
like, wow, you don't think very much of my character.
Right.
Apparently.
Well, and the fact too, like, and here's why this would come up to him, because he and I have had conversations about religion, about theology, and whatever. And I'm not shy about the fact that I'm agnostic. I'm by no means atheist. My thought, and the way that I would put it if I was asked by anybody, is like, dude, I'm not 2,000 years old. I don't know. Like, I'll find out when I die, sure, but I'm not gonna.
Now I know Scientology is a lie.
Right.
Not old enough.
But,
get off the table.
But I'm not like. But I don't know, and I'm satisfied with not knowing. I'm not going to live my life any differently than if I did know. Like, I'm going to be as good a person as I can be, and do, I'm not going to get the whole spiel, right? Like, but that shouldn't. So that shouldn't be. I've been to church. I've been to church recently.
The friend who proposed the idea of you playing has been to church with you and pointed that out. Like, he's not closed-minded about it, by any means.
So what was funny about it was I didn't catch the subtlety until like 12 hours after the conversation. So I went home and I was telling Stacy, like, yeah, so, we were all together today, the guys were all together today, and we were talking about this, and this is how the conversation went. And as I was relaying it to her, I was like, oh shit, he was talking about me. Like, he was saying that I would, like, he was
not religious enough, man,
assuming that, like, maybe I would try to exploit Jesus. And, like,
well, I mean, we're not a Christian band, and I would make money off it. I'd be like, yeah, pay me.
No, and I said that too when it was brought up that, like, I've never played for money. Like, the only reason I'm inquiring is because you're doing a bring the community together thing, and you don't have enough artists.
Yeah.
So my interest is, if you need to fill a spot, maybe we can fill a spot. It's not
you would have gone into that knowing that probably wasn't going to be a crowd of folk lovers,
No, and it wasn't going to be a crowd where I felt like maybe they could gain something from where I think about music, all music, is that if I go play Into the Ground for you, knowing it's about birth, life, and death, and you think that it's about St. Peter's walk to the fish market, that's okay with me. That's what you took from it.
Right.
So it was religious to you. I don't care what it means to you.
They're not going to ask us. We're going to get off stage and walk away.
Right. So just the idea, though, that, like, and again, the point for me bringing it up is because, A, it was a funny anecdote that it took 12 hours for me to be like, that son of a bitch sold me. And then I saw you the next day, and I was like, do you realize that he was saying, you were like, yeah. Like, yeah, I absolutely realized that.
I thought you were just being super nice about it.
No, I was being super dumb. Like, I had no idea that's what I was.
Brandon wanted to believe the best in everybody, man.
Right. But here's my point for bringing the whole thing up. In this instance, I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal or anything. I just think that is why when religious people, and there are a lot of them, and the extreme ones are what I'm talking about here. You can be spiritual, you can be whatever.
This guy's religion is pretty dominating factor in his life.
Yeah, it's everything. And my thing is, wear what you dig, right? I'm not gonna tell you how to dress. I'm not gonna tell you how to think, whatever. But the idea from where I was coming from was, dude, you're doing a community event. I don't mind helping bringing the Ferguson community together if that's what the goal is. I'm not religious, but I'm open-minded, and
especially with everything that was going on, because this was right before we were talking before about the verdict,
yeah.
So to bring the community together, especially in Ferguson, right when this is about to happen, that seems like a great idea.
So to me though, you see a lot of like these extreme religious people that are like, the problem with the world, the problem with the country, the problem with insert term here is that people have fallen away from God. Well, a lot of times in this instance, I feel like, well, you almost kind of pushed me from God, didn't you? Like you had an opportunity that if I was as open-minded as I actually am, maybe you could have drawn me in. I don't know that you could have. Probably not. Like, I will be honest with you.
You would have met a lot more of the community of Christians.
If he's paying, I'll play some Christian songs. That's fine with me. I'd be like, all right.
Now you're making money off Jesus. But yeah, so it just, to me, like, if religious people need an example of how a situation could have been handled a little bit better. And again, he wasn't rude. He wasn't mean. He wasn't like, no, you
fucking heathen.
Yeah, right. He didn't.
But I think it's interesting because if the other Christian person we were talking to, the second person would have been running it, he would have offered it to you.
Yeah.
As more just like, because I think, well, it also probably knows you longer and knows that you're not, as much as you're agnostic, you're not very, not anti-religion.
No, not at all. And in fact, I'm anti-religion, very much so. I get irked by people who go on these like religious berating tangents because like
I'm sure I've pissed you off a time or two, but I tend to fall into those.
No, not so much. There are some people who are really just like shoot it down. I don't like the people who, when you're, because there are groups of people, right? There are different groups of people. So we all may be on the same page, but somebody could walk into the room and be a very religious person.
Right.
I
was going, you don't know.
Right.
I don't know. That's why I don't say anything.
There's the type of person that would meet that religious guy entering the room and be like, oh, really? You believe in an invisible guy in the sky? Really? Really? And just be very condescending. I don't like that. That bothers me a lot.
That's been my dominant experiences. That's usually what happens. I see people attacking other people for their religion. I'm just like,
now if I see someone using religion to try to suppress homosexuality or
absolutely,
which, like, every religion does.
I will get in attack mode.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The vast majority of people use religion as a self-comfort.
Everything has flaws, right? So like, religion can have a great purpose, but it can be misused. You see that when Joel Osteen has an opportunity to
that was just money there,
right? To open his doors and be a man of God.
He was not asked, guys. No one asked.
Yeah,
him.
Nobody asked.
Okay, nobody asked him.
Nobody.
He had to be asked to do the right thing, like we all.
Know, conservatives that comment on this are gonna be like, well, it came out that like he had a little bit of rain in his garage. Like, shut up. Like,
that is the exact excuse.
Have you seen a picture of his house, like how big it is? Oh my God,
it's gigantic.
It looks like a compound,
right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's that's a
but
whole.
The Lord wanted him to have it.
He got called out pretty hard.
That's a whole other issue. Is like those what do you call them? Mega churches?
Yep.
Pat Robertson and bullshit. Haiti was earthquaked because they like gays or something. I don't know.
Ann Coulter.
You mean what do we determine her name was? The
evil
slender woman.
The slender
woman. Yeah, so I don't know. To me, that was an interesting thing that happened during my week. And as soon as it happened, I was like, well, I'm going to talk about this because I think this is a good example of where a situation could have been, we could have had a different discussion and come to a different conclusion. I don't give a shit if I play your religious concert or not.
Right.
It's not something that I would seek out for me to play because it's not my crowd.
But you can hire us, and your crowd will have a good time. And it'll be fine.
And my thought wasn't even hire us. My
thought is
my thought. Well, I hadn't talked to you, so we had already determined I was too much of a heathen by the time that would have gotten brought up. But I just thought it was interesting because it really, to me, it was like it was kind of an ironic conversation to have with this person, and even more ironic that I didn't catch it until the end of the freaking night and couldn't say anything about it until 24 hours
That was
later.
The Shyamalan twist of the week.
Yeah, like, wait a minute, son of a gun.
Was I just insulted?
Right, I was 12 hours ago. So anyway, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up for the week. Remember to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at TDAP 2017. We will keep you updated. We're really, really heavily going to keep our eye on these protests in St. Louis. We
probably check out our Twitter for random sporadic updates too.
Right. We really would like to. We really would have liked to have talked to some of the protesters down there, and we. That's still a goal in our head. So
I know personally, I don't live very far, and I'm gonna try to do something.
Right. So if this episode came out late, then you know that was probably because you've already heard the content that we were hoping to get. But anyway, so we got that the links to the comment or to the conversations discussed, all of those topics. Those are listed below in the comment section. TDAP episodes, new ones, are available on Tuesdays normally, unless we have a crazy month like this September, which has been a little bit sporadic. But normally on Tuesdays on iTunes and Google Play. And I think that pretty much does it for the week. So, as always, here it is, your alternative fact of the week. Thanks.
Well, this is new tonight. A family has had enough. They say a woman is defecating on their sidewalk near Briargate and Union in Colorado Springs. The family says they've caught her in the act twice now. They've begged her to stop, but now Springs police are getting involved. 11 News reporter Spencer Wilson joins us live in the studio. And Spencer, this is so gross. What is the family saying about how often this is happening?
Elisa, according to the Buddy family, about once a week. They're getting all too familiar with the paper towels she wipes with and the nasty surprises she leaves behind.
We call her the Mad Pooper of Pine Creek.
Kathy Buddy and her family have had enough.
And it's not like it's private. People can see you. I mean, we're seeing her, so.
Pants around ankles, in broad daylight, her kids saw it happen first.
They came screaming, you're not going to believe this. They're like crying. It's like, what? And they're like, there's a lady taking a poop. And so I come outside, it's like, oh dear goodness. And so I was like, are you serious? Are you really taking a poop right here in front of my kids? And she's like, yeah, sorry.
Kathy says if that was it, there wouldn't be a problem.
And so I thought for sure she's mortified. It was an accident. She'll go get a dog bag, come back, clean it up, and never run here ever again. Not the case.